What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of That Time in Hip Hop, the podcast hosted by myself, Vegas of Hip Hop Now podcast, and the homie Tone of IntoTheDome.com. What's good, man?
What's good, man? I'm sitting there drinking something organic, man. So we're gonna keep it clean today.
Hey, look, man, I'm not even hating, man. I started a new job in January. I think I gained like 12 pounds, ripping and running, trying out spots around me. So now it's time to cut weight, man. I already got 4 pounds off, and shit, it's only been a week. So I got 20 more to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that kind of it's one of those things where it's a bad habit, but like during the winter, I tend to gain some weight. Everybody kind of gains a little bit of weight,
Mhm.
but I tend to gain some weight, and then as it gets closer to the summer, I cut like 20 something pounds. You know what I'm saying? But the key is to keep it off. You know what I'm saying? Not to
Yeah, true
gain.
indeed.
Yeah, because when you get older, it get harder to get that weight off, man. It's easy to pile it on, much
Damn
harder
right.
to get it off. But if you're tuning in for the first time, this podcast, That Time in Hip Hop, is a podcast about the nostalgia, the history, and more importantly, the preservation of hip hop music and culture. We bring you the artists, the tastemakers, the producers, the albums, the events, everything that's happened at some point in time in hip hop, whether it be the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s. Everything is important because it's all a part of hip hop. And it's like a mixed bag of surprises every time you tune in, man. And we got a dope show for y'all tonight, man. So let's get right into a segment that we like to open up the show. That what happened this week in hip hop. And what happened this week, a couple of things happened this week in hip hop, but the one thing in particular that we want to highlight is on May 21st, 2019 is when my mama water burst. Notorious B.I.G. was born, aka Biggie Smalls, aka Christopher Wallace, but he also shares a birthday with Havoc of Mobb Deep, man. Tone, man. I guess that's like a holiday for us, right? As hip hop fans.
Man, by all means, it's definitely a holiday because one of my favorite MCs of all time, Biggie, was born, and one of my favorite producers of all time, Havoc, was born. So I don't even know where to start, man. Like, both of these guys are very instrumental in the sound of New York hip hop around 94, 95. I mean, they both helped usher in that style and that vibe after Death Row had hip hop on lock for about 2 years, and not just Death Row, but Ice Cube as well. So, yeah, man, the deep, dark production of Havoc that you can still hear today in The Alchemist and a few other guys. And of course, what do you say about Biggie Smalls, man? Except for it's just bittersweet talking about this guy. You know what I'm saying? So one of the greatest MCs of all time and one of the greatest producers of all time, man. So yeah, this is definitely it's a holiday, man. Bittersweet
Yeah,
though.
yes, it is bittersweet, man, because you mentioned Havoc, makes you think about Prodigy. He's not here,
And indeed.
you know what I'm saying? And then you talk about Big, but then all the good memories come, but then all the bad memories come with it. And I don't know if a lot of people knew. Some people did, but Havoc actually made a beat for Biggie, produced a song for Biggie on the Life After Death album. Was it Kiss Your Ass Goodbye? Was it that track? Or it was either that or what's the other one? I'm talking about the dark skin Jermaine joint. You're nobody till somebody kills you. One of those was RZA, and one of them was Havoc's.
That's
I can't
that's true. And man, I'm gonna tell you, it shocked me because I forgot that Havoc actually did a track on Life After Death, to be honest with you. But and now it's even more ironic that both of these guys' birthday are sharing the same day. And I'm gonna tell you, I want to see real quick because I honestly, I know he did a track, but I honestly don't remember the name of the track, man. And I take pride in know all of these small details in it. But oh, it was Last Day, man.
Like that's what it was.
Have a dig last day with the lock. Excuse me, listeners. I'm on my grind a little better, but yeah, he did last days with the locks, and I think he also sent more beats to Biggie and Puffy, and I think that at that time, I mean, so many people were sending beats to Biggie for that double album that he caught that last days and he put that joint on the album. But Biggie always respected Havoc and Mobb Deep. He always said Prodigy got busy. He always enjoyed Havoc um, production and actually toured together. I believe at one point, like a little small tour or a couple of cities they shared the stage. But yeah, man, it's bittersweet because again, like you said, Prodigy, you can't think of Havoc without Prodigy. You know what I'm saying? And Prodigy passing away just in recent years, and then Biggie passing away. And truthfully, man, I was watching that USA document, well, not documentary, but that show, Unsolved, man, and about Biggie and Pac, and you know, each time they do this, they open up old wounds, man. Because I remember being in school in college when Big passed. I was like a senior, I believe, and I was like, damn, man, Biggie got killed. Pac just died like 6 months ago, and I was just so upset because I was like, man, Puff and Big and Bad Boy, these guys were really naive, man, to go out west right now, man. It's just too hot right now. You know,
Yeah,
Ice-T talked about that on the interview. You can put up on YouTube. It was on one of those documentaries. He was like, man, why in the world are these guys over there? But I just think that being young, rich, naive, not really understanding that true culture out west and how upset everyone was after Pac died in the Vibe magazine and, kind of inciting, even though they were young journalists, they didn't know they were inciting some real street beef that would intertwine in the hip hop. Man, like I said, man, it just hurts me, man. And I still enjoy big music to this day. I still enjoy Havoc sound. Um, I still listen to Mobb Deep albums very often. And man, just want to say happy birthday and rest in peace to Biggie and happy birthday to Prodigy, man. I mean, excuse me, to Havoc, man.
word, no doubt, man. And just a quick tidbit, uh, allhiphop.com they did this in like 2013. Obviously, this list is subjective, so don't kill us, don't kill them. Subjective just means it's an opinion. You know what I'm saying? But they did Havoc's top 10 best non-Mob Deep beats. Now I'm gonna just run through them real quick. At number 10, they have The Future. That was a record by Diddy off of his Press Play album. Nas, Shoot 'Em Up. That was off the Nostradamus album, which I think I really liked that beat, but hated the hook. They did, Havoc also produced at number 8, Don't Need Your Love by The Game. I don't remember that one.
Oh yes,
Number
very dope.
7, yeah, word.
Yes, very.
He did a record called Untitled off of Eminem's Recovery album. That's what they have at number 7. At number 6, they have Welcome to Hell, Bad Meets Evil. That's Eminem and Royce the 5'9", for some people who don't know. Havoc also did another track off of Life After Death, and that was Beef, What's Beef, off of Biggie's album, which is a pretty dope beat, and I did not know Havoc did that one at
You know
all.
what? That's the one I was actually thinking of, and I didn't even realize he did Last Day. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you pulled that list up because that's two very dope tracks off of Life After Death that Havoc laced for Biggie.
yeah, for sure. At number 4, they got The Promise by Foxy Brown. I remember that. It was kind of crazy. Uh, Usual Suspects by Big Noi at number 3. At number 2, and I did not know this, but he also did the beat to Jadakiss's maybe close to one of his biggest commercial records. Maybe not his biggest commercial record, but this track Why, um,
Yep.
as far as like off of his solo joint. And at number 1, they got Last Days, Notorious B.I.G. featuring a lock. So, and
Woo!
Havoc worked on Life of Pablo. So Havoc is kind of like you when you hear that some of these beats are his, you can hear the Mobb Deep sound, but in some cases, when you don't know he did them, you don't hear it. You know what I'm saying? It's just a hot beat. I did not know he did What's Beef. That just doesn't come across like a Havoc style beat, but it was. So like Tone said, man, happy birthday to the Notorious B.I.G. and Havoc of Mob Deep. Now we're gonna get into the main course of this episode of That Time in Hip Hop. Tone, and when I say main course, you know what I'm saying, we talk about some classic 90s hip hop from the South. Trust me, being somebody who's born and raised in Brooklyn, New York City, real recognized real when this album came out. Tone, tell them what it is, man.
It's funny you said, something about being full. You know what I'm saying? So we talking about full, we're thinking about eating, right? And so
Yeah.
Goodie Mob's album Soul Food is what I
Mm-hmm.
filled up off of over the past week as we talked about doing this particular show. And I'm gonna tell you, Goodie Mob Soul Food is not only to me one of the top 5 albums out of the South, it's one of the greatest albums in hip hop history because I literally grew up with this album over the past 20 plus years as it aged like fine wine. It's very unique to the sound of Southern hip hop. And coming out after only a year of Outkast dropping Southern Player listed Cadillac Music, there's some huge shoes to fill, and Organized Noise and Goodie Mob found a way to fill those shoes, not miss a beat from Outkast. A year before this great album dropped, you could hear Goodie Mob on Get Up, Get Out, and Get Something off Southern Playlistic and Call It a While. So I was like, okay, these dudes can rap, CeeLo, Big Gip, Kudo, Timo. I'm like, yo, they all got a different style, dope voices. They complement each other. I was like, I can't wait to hear the album. You know what I'm saying? So leading up to late 1995, I heard Cell Therapy. And I was like, everybody remember that tune. I was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
gangsta from the South. And then you heard the title track, Soul Food. You see the album cover with them in prayer, eating, preparing to eat. And I'm like, this is the spirit of the South, babe. And like, don't get me wrong, there was Southern music before Outkast, and Outkast kind of put it on a global scale. But Good Mob brought us back home to the kitchen table on Sunday after church. It's probably the most spiritual hip hop album of all time. And then CeeLo's voice just
Mm-hmm.
complimented and gave you that spirituality that I had never heard in hip hop. You talk,
Yeah.
it's an amazing piece of work. The intro, these guys are singing
Yeah.
spirituality. I never heard that on a rap album. You can go back to this day, anyone listening, put in Goodie Mob, Soul Food, and listen to the intro. You've never heard the intro in hip hop history like this. That's to touch you. You just haven't, big man. It's an amazing piece of work, man.
Yeah, man. To open an album with a actual Negro spiritual,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? At that time, because I think Pharoah Monch later did an album that just felt like it was all that. I think it was the Desire album. I
It
think it
was
was that
desire.
one.
It was desire.
Yeah. But obviously that was years later. For me, like I had heard Goodie Mob rap before, but in hip hop, a lot of times there's always a lot, especially when you got one crew that's new, like an Outkast being new, and then they got other cats with them. And sometimes, and maybe it's just me, I tend to hear certain dudes, but unless you got a verse that's really burning up the area, like how people felt that about Nas on Live at the Barbecue. You know, unless you got a verse that's standing out in that way, it's hard to say, okay, I'm anticipating that album. But when I heard Cell Therapy, I
Whew.
didn't I didn't connect the dots because I knew they were dope from hearing them before, but I wasn't anticipating them. And then when I heard, like you said, when I heard that beat, like the video would come on. I was in college at the time, and I remember the video would come on all the time, and it was mesmerizing. You know what I'm saying? Because the beat starts, the video is like almost mysterious. Like you look at the screen, like what the fuck is this? Like you know
Yeah,
what I'm
right.
saying? The way they distort in the colors and stuff like that. And then when that hook come in, you know what I'm saying? Who's that creeping through my window? Pow. Nobody now. Like so relatable on so many levels and really deceiving based off of when you get the Soul Food album. Because when I heard the album, obviously I love Soul Food record. And I love a number of records on there. But I was like, man, these dudes is gangster, they conscious, they
Yep,
spiritual,
yep.
and it was and the beats were crazy. You know what I'm saying? The beats were
Insane,
perfect.
insane.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, like their voices matched, so everybody was like a personality. You know what I'm saying? Their personality, but
Absolutely.
nobody crowded each other as far as, you knew when CeeLo was on. You knew when everybody was on, as opposed to a group like, let's say, like Leaders of the New School. Whereas, they were distinctive, but you was really waiting for Busta to rhyme. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Whereas these dudes, you couldn't wait to hear, okay, CeeLo said that. Let's see what he gonna say. Let's see what he gonna say. You know what I'm saying? And it was like the title Soul Food with that album is absolutely 100% that, man. It represents that in lyrics and beats and feeling. And like you said, man, I don't have to be from the South to know what it's like to feel that soul, because honestly, we trace my family history back to Africa. I come from the South. You know what I'm saying? I may have been born in New York City, but there's family in the South.
Yeah.
And we all can kind of relate to that whole feeling. And for them to do that, like in hip hop, that was nothing that had never been done. Even having Outkast come before them, it didn't have that kind of effect on me, that
No,
the
not at all. Soul food is the spirit of like black consciousness. So it doesn't matter where you were in America when it dropped, whether you was in the East Coast, in the South, the West Coast, people resonated with that. Because, like you said, at the end of the day, post slavery is the South. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Gospel and jazz and rock and roll, everything came from the blues, everything came from our struggle and our pain. And Soul Food and Goodie Mob found a way to interject all of that into a hip hop album, which again is more monumental now for anyone who haven't heard it. Go listen to it now, or if you haven't heard it in years, and you'll see that it's still head and shoulders above most hip hop albums because the feeling in it. Like there's Black Panther in Soul Food. There's the civil rights movement. There's housing discrimination. There's Jim Crow. There's all of these things, 80s drug laws. There's all of this stuff all combined within the pain and the struggle and the lyrics in Soul Food. And speaking of lyrics, these four guys actually are very lyrical. See, a lot of people think lyrics, they only think about, okay, this is the way Rakim rap, Nas rap, G rap, because you think of lyrics, you think of New York hip hop. That's
mhm,
why, people heard Corrupt and think, okay, he's a West Coast guy that can rap, even though he's from Philly originally, or Razzcast can really rap on the West Coast. Well, no, Goodie Mob, all four of these guys are very lyrical. You know what I'm saying? If you go back and dissect the verses, you will see how intricate and detailed their lyrics are. It's not just harmonizing, that soul, which they do a lot. They spitting, like you said, they spitting gangster, they spitting conscious, they're spitting hope and dreams and pain. And I believe any person who's been through any kind of struggle, if you put this on, you'll hear each song tells a different story of life of black people in the South.
yeah,
And Southern Pluralistic didn't even do that, because Southern Pluralistic gave you a visual and a tour guide around Atlanta the same way Nas gave you a tour guide around Queens and New York and Illmatic, and Dr. Dre took you around Compton and LA for the Chronic. But the Goodie Mob took you, like I said, on your knees to pray almost.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
it's kind of
different.
like it is different, because I was listening again today to it, and like you said, those other guys, and obviously not taking anything away from them, but you felt like it was a tour guide. But with Goodie Mob Soul Food, you get out the car, you go to those neighborhoods, you go in somebody's house, you go to where they shop, you go to a city council meeting and learn what's bothering people in the school system and on the streets and stuff like that. Like records like, Dirty South, where,
Mm-hmm.
easily you could hear the hook and it almost sounds like it's a braggadocious, typical rap record where it's just bragging about where you're from, but it's way deeper than that.
Yeah,
And it's
it
not
is.
preachy. That's the point that a lot of times people miss when it comes to conscious hip hop. There's some conscious hip hop that's just somebody preaching at you as to why you live your life so wrong. Nobody wants to hear that shit, honestly. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody wants to know that they're doing the wrong thing. But when someone's laying out what it is and the effects of it and what we need to do to improve, well, that's the whole argument. That's a whole essay, you know what I'm saying, on it, as opposed to highlights or headlines. And that's the whole science behind the title, Soul Food, food for thought, food for the soul. And when you listen to this album, man, you walk away feeling like, even though it was a long time ago, because my son, if you say 1990 anything, you might as well be talking about slavery times, because that's how
Right.
he. As soon as he heard 1990 anything, he like 19 what? And I'm like, yo, it's 1999. Like it wasn't that far, but it was. Uh, but man, yo, what are some? Well, let's talk about the production. You know what I'm saying? Because I read a piece on this actually on allhiphop.com. No, my bad. Allmusic.com, where they kind of describe this album and its effect, and they called it a classic. Uh, but they also described Organized Noise and Outkast production as kind of hitting its stride with this particular album. Do you agree with that?
I do because organized noise, the way they did Selling Pluralistic, don't get me wrong, it was phenomenal. But like anything else in life, practice makes perfect. You did Selling Pluralistic, you go right into recording Soul Food, and you're gonna be a little bit sharper. One could say Soul Food is actually a more complete album than Selling Playalistic. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
Organized Noise were a little bit better. Same way after that they went into AT Aliens and Aquemini and so forth and so on. They just kept getting better. But I first of all, like you said, All Music did give it 5 stars. Rolling Stones gave it 4 stars. The Source magazine that often pissed me off being from the South gave it 4 mics. Now again, they should
Mm.
give 5 mics. They gave Outkast 4.5 mics for Selling Pluralistic, which was crap. Same way they gave Dr. Dre the Chronic 4.5 mics. A lot of people don't know that. The Source magazine dropped the ball on people outside of New York. You gave the Chronic 4.5 mics. You gave
Yeah.
Soul Food 4 mics. You gave Selling Pluralistic 4.5 mics. That's why Big Boy said, I gotta hit the Source. I need my other half a mic because that Selling
Yeah.
Pluralistic was a classic. You know what I'm saying? So come on, man. So again, yeah, it was monumental with the production. It was 5 mics. The Source, they dropped the ball on it. But I think that again, Organized Noise were just getting stronger and stronger with their production and their creativity, and they put together something monumental. But let me say, as far as tracks, Thought Process is one that comes to mind with Andre 3000. You leave the intro and go right into Thought Process. You know what I'm saying? And it is a conscious song. You know what I'm saying? Andre killed it at the end, and that was the dope way to start the album. It was the first actual rap track on the album. Um, so that's just kind of one, man, for me personally that resonate with me. It's a song on the album called Fighting. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
That fighting for our spirit and mind and all that. I'm like, that goes again to when I was saying about the struggle of the 60s, man, and the Martin Luther King, the marches, Malcolm X and his consciousness, and James Baldwin, etc. That fighting by the Goodie Mob. I hadn't heard real songs like that. I mean, I heard, don't get me wrong, Public Enemy had Can't Trust It and all their tracks, and Poor Righteous Teachers and The Brand Nubian. So I mean, it was still in the spirit of that. Don't get me wrong, but it had the spirit of all of those situations with basically like the water hoses on people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like the police, the firemen with the water hose, it took it to that extreme on Soul Food. And that song Fighting comes to mind, man. And also a track on that called the day after. It's the last track on the album.
yeah,
And you talking about summarizing like an essay, and the last few sentences really bring it all in perspective, man, about life and being black in America and going through what we went through during the Jim Crow era. You know what I'm saying? And I think you can. It's Soul Food is like a case study on African American history. To be honest with you, and I'm not. It's not hyperbole. It's really that serious of an album. When I look back and think about me riding through it today in the last few days, I was like, oh my God, it's been a long time since I really feeling that way as I listen to a rap album.
yeah. I think what makes it so compelling, and I easily can call it a classic because again, when it first came out, I heard songs here and there like Soul Food. I basically heard the singles, and Dirty South, and, Cell Therapy, and was like, damn, 3 for 3. Them records are dope. And I didn't have the album, and that wasn't because I didn't want to buy it. I was in college, man. So
No doubt, no doubt.
anybody who went to college, how that go. You got to be like, all right, I'm gonna put this $10 to get in that club, or eat, or buy this album. And it's kind of like you gotta make a choice. But I did hear it. I had like copies from friends or whatever. And what makes it so compelling is I can listen to it today. Like Tone said, he's listening to it, thinking leading up into the show. And it can still have that effect because it's still relevant and it's so well produced from top to bottom. From you could tell that, again, not to keep making these soul food puns and shit like that, but that title is the perfect title because it's kind of like, how when they say you put some love in your food or you put your drawers in it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, just to let people know that you took care of this food when you made it. You cared about from how high you had the fire to how much of the ingredients you put in there, how long you cooked it, you know what I'm saying? Like how you prepare this food. And that's how I feel like this album wasn't just, oh, well, organized confusion. I'm not organized confusion. Organized noise is they're growing and they got this particular sound and outlook. Nah, man, you got 4 dudes who have to work together to make this album work through every track, through every skit, through the whole concept of the album. For it to come out the way it did, is pretty remarkable. You know what I'm saying? And really underappreciated in hip hop history because
Absolutely.
you don't always hear people bring up Goodie Mob and their debut. This is their debut album. You know what I'm saying? And they deserve a lot of credit for that. But I did want to draw this one comparison. An album like this, if it came out today, it'd be way more popular. It'd be way more popular because of the exposure and, more importantly, because people from other regions can learn more about it. They don't have to buy the album to learn about it. Me being from New York City, but being a music fan, I will listen to dudes' lyrics and their vision and all that. I would accept everything they created, and then I walk away knowing more about the South. But back in those days, cats like at the Source magazine, cats didn't really know much and wasn't music fans. They may have been hip hop fans, but they may have been partial to, New York City or Philly or you know, everything that was familiar. But now we live in a time where obviously with this podcast, Tone's from North Carolina, I'm from New York City. We are more connected today than ever. So there wouldn't be that barrier of, oh, well, those are South hip hop rappers, and they got to penetrate the skill level in order for New York fans to like them. As you can hear in hip hop now, New York fans are all over Southern traditions as far as rhyming and slang and everything else. But I really think, man, it's a very underappreciated album and group. for what they provided in 1995, nonetheless.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what too? In hip hop, we always show love to our mothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, regardless of how we grew up, we find a way to say, because a lot of times, man, broken homes, broken communities, man, a lot of fathers are missing in action for different reasons. A lot of that is systematic racism broke the black family up a long time ago. So we don't have to go into that, but we know some realities with the system and with laws and stuff like that put some of our young men in jail for bogus crimes for a lifetime. So uh, a lot of single mothers had to raise us, a lot of us. And Tupac did that Dear Mama, and at that time, that song was so large because people had made songs about family before, but not that passionate. And then Goodie Mob turn around and do the track Guess Who, My Mama, and they captured that same passion and feeling and love towards uh motherhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I could just say it real quick, and hopefully I, I can take this one little line real quick. CeeLo said, he said, my mama, destination unknown, went out on her own. She was barely even grown and became my mama. When times was bad, I was glad she became my mama, or what have you. So it was one of the things where he went into a deep verse about his mom, and so did the other guys in Goodie Mob, man. And I hadn't heard that since Pop. Pop did the same song around that same time. Me Against the World came out in '95, and Soul Food came out in '95, and Dear Mama, and then My Mama. And I don't know who influenced who, but like I said, those are probably two of the best songs dedicated to motherhood. And speaking of Tupac, also, CeeLo stated on an interview that Goodie Mob was going to be on One Nation also. Tupac had an album coming out called One Nation. It's going to have Black Moon and Smith and Wesson and Greg Nice and a couple other people that he really admired on the East Coast. He was trans with, and so there's a video on YouTube. If you type in Goodie Mob and Tupac, with Goodie Mob walking into the studio, and Tupac showing them a lot of love and showing some excitement, and they supposed to did some work together on One Nation. So they could have been doing some of them similar kind of songs at that time, man. So, but yeah, that song, My Mama, man, Guess Who, it just shows again that they were willing to be vulnerable on soulful, gangster and vulnerable at the same time, talking about their family. It's great, man.
Yeah, and another tidbit, that Soul Food video, uh, couple of hungry nights in college, man. You just see the cornbread sitting on the table in the video, like, yo, I gotta turn this off. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of them joints. So it's the same thing for me though, man. Like, some of my favorite joints, kind of mentioned a lot of them. I mean, I love a lot here, but Thought Process, I agree with what you said. That song really, like, first of all, the intro, Free, kinds of sets a tone, but then once they start rapping, that really reinforces what this album is about when you hear Thought Process. Um, and that's what great albums do. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's the intro and the first song, usually is that. If there's no intro, maybe it's the first song, but you always want a record that's going to set the tone of the album. So that way the listener is in gear, in a certain mind state, in a certain area of listening, where their ears are tuned to what you want them to be able to accept. So when your other messages, and they don't have to be conscious messages, it could be a gangster rap album, but as long as you set the tone on how this is going to flow and you don't really derail from that mission, then that's when people get lost in your music. And I feel like with Soul Food is absolutely that, man. Like you said, you look at the cover, you know what I'm saying? They're praying at the table before they eat, and it's not one religion, as you can see on the cover, which is also dope. And, it's called Soul Food. You hear the Negro spirituals in the beginning, Thought Process comes on, and it's just a roller coaster, man. Again, Dirty South is one of my favorites. Cell Therapy, Sesame Street, you know what I'm saying? Because we can't forget about the kids in the hood.
Yep.
Guess Who is another one of my favorites. Like you said about the mothers. Soul Food, obviously. Funeral. That was. I mean, well, Funeral was more of a. Wasn't that a skit though? I think that was
Yeah,
more.
yeah, it was more short.
Um, but it was. I think by that time, by the time that came on, I mean, I definitely understood what this album was about, and coming from the hood, I could relate to all of it. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of this stuff is universal, even though it's happening in different regions. Um, but yeah, man, the day after, man, I mean, I just think it's so much praise you can put on this type of album. Again, it's podcasts like these that and blogs and just fans of hip hop that keep this type of stuff alive. And I think it's dope to have this conversation and to let people know, like y'all always say, man, South got something to say, man, and it's a classic.
And you know what, too, man? Yeah, no doubt. I was definitely gonna say that. And just one last line, man. You just brought up the day after again, and I literally was listening to that song right before we called in, man. And one more line had my fist up in the air, man, like this. And it was now my eyes are open and I can finally see we didn't die for nothing because we finally free. And the way that she sung that hook, I was just like, it's like I'm black and I'm proud. It's like James Brown. It's just like, man, it was just like 70s. I can't even explain the feeling, man, when I was hearing that. I forgot how ill that track was, man. And I literally just listened to it about an hour and a half ago because I didn't get to that track in the car. And I said, man, I'm just going YouTube real quick. I just want to get a feeling of that track again. It's been years. And when that line, they sung that hook, man, it made me think about my grandfather. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like a lot of people in my family who went through this struggle so I can go to a nice school after being raised in the hood with them after my mom passed and all that when I was a kid. It made me think about watching my granddad walk down the street with his paper bag after working like 12 hours, you know what I'm saying, in
mm,
the hood. And it's like he did that for me and my siblings. And it's like, damn, he did that to be free what he went through in the 40s, 50s, and 60s because he lived a long time. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, it made me think about my grandparents, man. It's really that kind of album as a 42-year-old man. I can go back right now and I can feel good about people tell a lot of stuff about hip hop, man. But there's albums and groups and lyrics like this that let you know that hip hop has a place forever in our consciousness and our culture, man. Yeah.
yeah, and it's been happening since the 80s. It's been happening in the 90s, and it still happens to this day. It's just we got to point them in the right direction because a lot of times, especially today, you're not gonna hear this type of stuff. Some people watch this episode, hear us talking about Goodie Mob, and be like, "Damn, that was the time." We don't get anything like that today. Yes, we do, because there's a number of hip hop albums I listen to throughout the years, and recent years, this year so far, there are a number of albums that touch on some of these types of themes, and a lot of it hasn't changed. You know what I'm saying? And we just got to remember, man, just because an album came out at a certain time, it's still relevant. It don't even have to be conscious. Most people tune into a record, because they're trying to jam. That's it. You want to listen to your joint, you want to drive or whatever. But for somebody to make you reflect off of your life, that's success. You know what I'm saying? That's what artists strive for, is
Yep.
to not only relate to you, but to make that connection and in some cases make you walk away a better you. And if you can do that with your lyrics, with the album, with the music, and make it all come together, man, you've done your job. So salute to the team, the Goodie Mob, you know what I'm saying? Organized Noise, man. This is a classic again. In my opinion, very unappreciated. I think some people will say, no, it's cool, but they don't bring it up. I don't see people listening to it as much as I see other things. I don't see anniversaries popping up as much as I see other albums every year. Like, I don't want to, like, don't come at me with no, oh, it's the 12th anniversary of this album. That doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We need, there's other albums that have come out that are just as dope, that are celebrating 10, 15, 25, 30 years, and we got to keep the stuff alive, man. So that was a dope one, Tone, you know what I'm saying, for coming up with that topic for this episode. Now, that's a recommendation, but we come to the part in the show where we give you some other recommendations of albums you should go back to and listen to if you heard them before, or if you've never heard them before. Their recommendations in that regard. My recommendation for this week is an album that initially I had to be convinced to even listen to. I was a host at Strictly Hip Hop in Baltimore and Morgan State University. I was playing singles from this cat, you know what I'm saying, who's Sticky Fingers of Onyx, like Come On and stuff like that, because I thought the records were dope. So I put them in rotation. But when I saw the album cover, this dude like with a fake braids in his hair and jumping over a garbage can with a cop car behind him, and I was like, I don't know if I want to hear that. I like Onyx as a group. I like Sticky Fingers, but I don't know what this is. And dudes kept telling me, you need to listen to his album, Black Trash, the autobiography of Kurt Jones. And I'm like, yo, even the
Yeah.
title, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, even the
Yeah.
title of that album, why would I want to? I'm looking at the cover. The cover's terrible. The title of the album's terrible. It's Sticky Fingers without Onyx. Why would I like this? Let me tell y'all, to this day, testifying fan of one of the most slept on albums in hip hop history. Trust me, I was sleeping. Morpheus came by. I took the red or the blue pill. I can't remember which pill it is to get out the matrix, but you know what I'm talking about. I listened to the album, one of the greatest concept albums in hip hop history. No exaggeration. Let me tell you why. Album came out in 2001, right? We had a lot of hip hop by then. I listened to the album. You talk about somebody committing to a concept. Every skit is connected to every song. It is a story from track one to the last track. It is a story through and through. If the first skit is, well, actually, look, it even starts with I think it's the Paramount music theme from the movies Paramount. It starts with that theme. Matter of fact, Dr. Dre used that in Compton. Whatever that theme is in the intro. But that comes on, and then there's a skit of a dude boning his shorty, and somebody knocks on the door. You know, hip hop, somebody always boning his shorty in a skit. But somebody knocks on the door, and it's his man. That's like every hip
Yeah.
hop album.
Yeah.
Uh, but somebody knocks on the door, and it's his man out of jail, and who's played by Sticky Fingers. And from there on, every record you hear is connected to every skit you hear. So as the skits tell a story, developing all the way to the end, those songs that follow each skit is connected to that story. So if let me see, if what was the first track? Just to, because I'm trying to make a case, because people need to hear this, man. They gotta hear this. All right. So the first song is called Come On. That's the record I used to play. The skit that I told you about, after his man comes through, they go to the club. So the Come On track is kind of like, yo, we going to the club. We're going to wild out. Come on. Act up. Come on. And it's real dope. It's in that. It's real energetic. And every song follows every skit, man. Tone, have you ever heard Sticky Fingers, Black Trash, the autobiography of Kurt Jones?
Yeah, man, I have. I actually own it. I listened to it in the record store one day, and I was skimming through it. I'm like, damn, this shit is creative. So I copped it, man. And real talk, Sticky Fingers is actually one of the most creative MCs I've ever heard. He's very underrated lyrically. It did follow a theme, a story And you don't get someone who can stick to a concept for more than one song. You know what I'm saying? Like he stuck to it for an entire album. He basically told a story. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, man, dude is very dope, man. When you want to be, he got a lot of excitement in his voice. He got a lot of different flavor and styles within that album, within his whole MCing in general. So yeah, man, I thought it was a dope album. That's hot.
Yeah, one other thing for people who still may be somewhat on the fence with it, I'm telling you, you really shouldn't be, man. This is if you got a long ride, a long commute, you're gonna clean the house or whatever, you can literally listen to it. It's like a movie. But even his guest features play roles within this movie.
They sure
Like,
do.
for example, track 9, The State versus Kurt Jones, features Cannabis and
Yep.
Redman, and they basically play lawyers. Come on, man. This is what we talk about. We ain't talking about a song that features Cannabis and Redman and everybody take turns spitting their verses. They play into the concept. And this is around the time Cannabis still was kind of buzzing a little bit. I mean, it's one of those albums, man, that is highly underrated, mainly because it's highly slept on. And I've seen it happen over time where other people have released uh, conceptual albums with a theme and have never carried it to the extent as this album. So, Tone, what's your recommendation for this week?
Mine this week, man. I digged in the crates a little bit. Going back to early 2000s, man, with one of my favorite groups that was from the newer school, Dead Praise, and their album
Mm.
"Let's Get Free," man. And oof, you talking about hip hop wasn't ready for that again. I mean, it was hip hop was glad Public Enemy was gone. They're like, this too heavy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we glad Poor Righteous Teachers and Brand Nubians and the X Clan and all these, man, they gone now. We can just kind of party and dance and holler at some chicks. And Dead Prayers came out, and it was throwing blows at the establishment, man. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, like these guys can really rap, man. And Let's Get Free came out March 2000, man. And some of my songs I like on this: a joint called Psychology, a joint called Assassination, a song called It's Bigger Than Hip Hop, and that was produced by Kanye West. Lord Jamal from Brand Nubians did produce some of the tracks on the album. It's hard, the production is dope. I like a track called Mind Sex. Very dope, more of an intimate drum for the chicks or whatever. But don't get it twisted, man. Dead Prayers is kind of a combination of PE and NWA. You know what I'm saying? They're raw. You know what I'm saying? You can check out some of their joints on YouTube. You can check them out. It was on Death Poetry one time, and they both came out M1 Stickman, and they did this poem slash rhyme, and I mean it's hard, man. If you sensitive and not black, they might rub you the wrong way, but they are really about black culture, black fight, black struggle, but it also lyrical as well, man. And yeah, man, that Let's Get Free. Put that joint in. They got a joint on it called Day Schools or something like that, talking about the education system and academia in America and the way we've been having the misfortune of not getting the proper education. And again, they are a case study as well on American history and on black culture and on black pain, and black triumph as well, man. So yeah, if you want to ride and kind of want to think a little bit and hear some dope hip hop, put in that Let's Get Free with Dan Prez, man, and I think you'll enjoy it. Classic joint to me.
Yeah, again, man, like some of these albums, man, came out at points in my life where, I was a little conflicted, or just too damn busy, which is an understatement compared to today. But I remember around that time I was still hosting the hip hop show, and I remember like dudes would call up all the time, like, yo, y'all ain't playing no Dead Prez. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be a hip hop show. Y'all not playing no Dead Prez. And actually we was, you know what I'm saying? But we didn't have like the whole album a heavy rotation and stuff like that. And I just remember hearing that track, Bigger Than Hip Hop, and I was like, that track is dope. And just to preference that, the hip hop show I hosted was like an underground hip hop show. So a lot of times, people wanted or listeners wanted you to be under the underground. Like everything had to be boom bap, dirty, grimy, or whatever. And when I became the host, I expanded that a little bit because I felt like, not that we had to play like a bunch of Puff Daddy records or anything like that, but I felt like some things were still true hip hop, even though they didn't contain that sound. So when Dead Prez came out, like you said, they came out at a time where everything was kind of in that middle ground. You know what I'm saying? Where you got people like a Jay-Z who can make a party record, but the lyrics will still have that skill level on it. So when Dead Prez is coming out, I kind of was shunning it a little bit on the radio. I can't front because I felt like dudes just wanted the show to sound a certain way, and this was their flag. But then when I heard songs like Mind Sex, and I was like, nah, this you can't keep coming with dope records and I ignore it. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because then
right.
I'm doing this service to the listeners, man. But yeah, man, that's an album that honestly I haven't heard in its entirety. I've heard a number of songs, but I never really sat down and listened to it. So I'm
Nah,
definitely
man.
gonna check it out, man.
Yeah, yeah. Please do that. Please listen to the whole album at your leisure. And just real quick, all music, they're very hard on ranking albums. That's kind of like Rotten Tomatoes with movies. They gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Chicago Sun Time gave it 4 stars out of 4 stars. Rolling Stones gave it 4 stars back in 2000 and came back and ranked it again 4 stars 10 years after it was released. Again, the Source magazine 3.5 out of 5. The Source, it just depends on, by 2000, the Source wasn't the Bible no more. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Anyway, they was kind of, they gave Lil Kim, Nicki True 5 mics. They gave Bun B 5 mics. No diss to Bun B, I like him, but 5 mics for that OG joint. So Trill OG, come on, get out here. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So Kim got 5 mics, but the Dead Prez got 3.5 mics, but Rolling Stones almost gave it a perfect. And that's
yeah,
not even a hip hop publication. Get out of here. It's a great album, man. Listen to it all the way through.
yeah. Exactly. That's one of those albums. I give it the gym test because I could usually go to the gym, put an album on, and listen to it straight through and really kind of absorb what it is. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like it because I've heard most of the songs and I like mostly of what I heard, man. But if you're watching this, you should go and check out Dead Prez's Let's Get Free and also Sticky Fingers Black Trash album. Trust me, neither one of them are trash. We not recommending no garbage albums, and we giving you some variety every week. Like every week, you should be like, all right. Like if you would do, because I know dudes who've come to me and said, they was a little reluctant, but they ain't really grow up on hip hop and they starting to get into it. And it's like, what should I be listening to? And a question like that to somebody like me or Tone is like, man, I there's way too much to even name. But here you have it within this podcast, That Time in Hip Hop, where you can get it in small doses, and then you can go into your circle and say, yeah, man, Goodie Mob did this in 1995 and all that. All right. But what do you think about the Goodie Mob album? What do you think about our recommendations? Do you feel the same? Do you have additional comments? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Please know that not only can you watch this on video, but if sometimes you can't and maybe you still want to check it out, there's an audio version. All you have to do is go to soundcloud.com/hip hop now politic. I mean, hip hop now podcast, my bad. And, or if you have iTunes podcast or Google Play or Spreaker or whatever, just search Hip Hop Now Podcast because it's also available on my feed of Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you want more information about hip hop and articles about hip hop and about music in general, black culture, you know what I'm saying, you can visit intothedome.com. That's ENTERDADOME.com. Tone writes a ton of articles, man. It's a dope website. You should check it out. Go down that rabbit hole, man. Just absorb all of this content that we're giving to you, man. And just make sure that you subscribe to this channel for more. and share it with people you know would enjoy this type of content. Tone, that's it for us this week, man. On behalf of the homie and myself, That Time in Hip Hop, peace, y'all.
Peace.
Drop it on the random.